This week on Africa Weekly, we head to South Africa where residents of townships are protesting against a lack of basic services. Then we visit Mali, where a mobile app is helping health workers to deliver better services. And finally, we end in Nigeria, where families in Benin City are living off the earnings of their families working abroad. But first, here's a summary of the stories that made the headlines this week. Egypt said it will suspend air links with Qatar after cutting diplomatic ties with the Gulf Emirates and accusing it of supporting extremism. Qatari planes will be unable to cross Egyptian airspace or land on its territory until further notice. Bahrain, the United Arab Emirates, Yemen, the Maldives and Saudi Arabia have also severed ties with Qatar, and 6 airlines, including the UAE and Saudi Arabia, have suspended flights to the country. The EU is giving €50 million to set up a joint African military force in the Sahel region to fight jihadists. According to European Union Foreign Affairs Chief Federica Mogherini, funds will help pay for troops to fight terrorism, cross-border crime and illegal immigration.
For us, the security, prosperity and development of the Sahel is a key factor in the security, development and stability of Europe. We are truly partners, friends, neighbours, brothers and sisters, and for us this translates into a concrete commitment.
A ferocious storm killed 8 people after pummelling South Africa's west coast, forcing the closure of Cape Town harbour, triggering flash floods and causing extensive damage. Up to 10,000 people were evacuated from their homes as fires hit South Africa's Western Cape, fanned by the ferocious winter storm. The storm marks the end of a 2-year drought, the region's worst water shortage for 113 years. Lesotho's former Prime Minister Thomas Thabane is poised to form a coalition government after his party won snap elections and defeated the ruling alliance. Thabane's All Basotho Convention, or ABC party, won 48 parliamentary seats and will form a coalition with 3 other parties to obtain the required 61-seat majority. The party's Secretary-General said it would join forces with other parties to form the country's 3rd coalition government. At least 4,000 Angolans marched through Luanda demanding a fair election in August when President José Eduardo dos Santos steps down after 38 years in power. Protests aren't allowed in Angola, but this march was a rare exception. Dos Santos has ruled Angola since 1979, and his MPLA party is set to retain control at the election, with the party's defence minister emerging as the president's chosen successor at the August 23rd vote. Mobile internet still isn't working in Ethiopia as the country enters the 2nd week of its nationwide internet shutdown. The government claimed the service had been restored, but this wasn't the case. The lack of internet has had a significant impact not only on everyday life, but also on businesses who depend on the service to keep their companies afloat.
Ennerdale, on the outskirts of Johannesburg's sprawling Soweto township, conceals deep frustrations. Over 20 years after the end of apartheid, many in the South African township lack running water, electricity and jobs. A few weeks ago, that anger exploded onto the streets.
If the government is not doing anything about the situation we are in, it's just going to get worse and worse because the strikes before was better. Now it's just getting worse and worse because the people can see that the government is not doing anything about our situation that we are in.
There have been no homes built in Ennerdale since 1994, the year of Mandela's election. Of South Africa's 55 million people, 13% still live in informal dwellings. Ennerdale community organisers say violence is the only way to get politicians to listen.
There is no houses built in Ennerdale in the last 28 to 30 years. So the reason why we went to the streets was to get the attention of government so that they can give us houses.
According to Oxfam, 3 South African millionaires own the same as the poorest half of the population. Statistics like those, along with reports of government corruption, have caused deep anger among the poor.
South Africa has become more and more like a powder keg. That there have been it's become too many things that aren't quite working, that are more and more likely to set people off, that lead to an explosion.
The ANC-led government says that substantial progress has been made since Mandela's promise of a better life. Officials are pleading with communities to be patient, promising that the situation will improve. But residents in Ennerdale say they're tired of waiting and warn of more protests to come. Turning to technology to treat patients remotely. In Mali, skin conditions are widespread and skin doctors are scarce. At this clinic, a pilot programme allows healthcare workers to consult with a specialist, thanks to Bogu, an app designed by a Malian programmer.
If they have cases of skin disease and they need the opinion of a specialist, they take pictures, which they send us. They go to a platform which gives dermatologists access to the images.
Mali only has one dermatologist per million people, and nearly 30% of the population suffer from skin diseases of some variety, ranging from eczema to leprosy. The 18-month programme has helped treat hundreds of patients who can't afford to travel to the capital.
When I came to see the doctor, he took pictures, sent them and asked me to come back the next day to get my prescription. We went to buy the tablets and lotion, and I was healed. I didn't need to go anywhere. It was all done in Banamba.
It's not just patients benefiting from the technology. It also forms part of a training for doctors and nurses in the field.
We teach young people to learn dermatology from these images. In that way, if the image is good, we can make a diagnosis and give advice at a distance. We hope that this project will train health workers and improve the skin health of our population.
The idea is to expand the project from Mali to other African countries, reaching remote areas as long as they can get online.
Retired couple Grace and Emmanuel survive on money sent home by two of their children, who smuggled themselves into Italy several years ago. Their immediate priority is to build a new house. This one, in an abandoned neighbourhood in Nigeria's Benin City, is in danger of falling down as swampland reclaims the area.
So as they did there, now make us see.
We're surviving because they're over there. We eat because of them. My work, my food, it all depends on them, on the money they are sending.
More African migrants crossing the Mediterranean come from Nigeria than any other African country. And most of the 37,000 attempting the journey last year were from Benin City, pushed by poverty and unemployment. In 2015, the Nigerian diaspora transferred $21 billion back home. Emmanuel is building a large house for a client who went to Italy 10 years ago.
If not for the overseas, I don't think this would be possible.
Edo State, of which Benin City is the capital, wants to create 200,000 jobs, like this, to stop people taking the illegal route abroad.
We prefer to have our young ones being celebrated outside for skills that they earn in Nigeria, and we get the dollar out of it and get the pounds out of it, than our young ones going through Libya waters to get to Europe. That we don't want.
The fear is that the younger generation would rather chance their luck abroad than build a future at home. And if that continues, the city is effectively digging itself into a hole.
Ivory Coast's international midfielder Cheick Tioté has died whilst training with his Chinese club Beijing Enterprises at the age of just 30. Tioté, who was part of the Ivory Coast squad that delivered the 2015 Africa Cup of Nations, had only just moved to China in February after ending a 7-year stay with English outfit Newcastle United. The cause of his death has yet to be established. Next week on Africa Weekly, we head to Nigeria, where men's traditional fashions are back in vogue. That's all from us at Africa Weekly. Until next week.